I'm here in the gathering space in front of our sanctuary, just to give you a little bit of a different view. We've got 3 guests with us, and the first is Carol Reid. She's a lifelong member of Norval United Church who moved away a few years ago, so we're happy to welcome Carol. Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
So I know you very well, but the rest of Canada doesn't know you perhaps so well. So tell us a bit about yourself and what you do or what you've done and where you are.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm a lifelong member of Norval United Church, was born and raised just outside of Norval on a farm that's no longer a farm. And 8 years ago, my spouse and I actually met my spouse at Norval United back in 2007. So we retired in 2012 and moved to Miramichi, where Shane is from. And we are enjoying life here as a retired couple. Shane still does some work, but I basically volunteer. I'm involved with our Meals on Wheels program, a soup kitchen, and I'm on the board of our local food bank. So that's what I do, non-COVID times.
Yeah. And so, Carol, we're talking this Sunday about hope, and we're asking our different guests about hope. And so are you feeling any hope these days, or where do you find hope these days?
I feel very hopeful, actually. And I love your scripture reading. That's one of my favorite verses ever since I was about 17 years old. And just as an aside, shortly after we got home from Florida, we looked out our back window and we saw 4 eagles soaring around over the river, 2 large ones and 2 small ones. And it was just amazing to see that. And so it reminded me of this Bible verse as well. I feel very hopeful. I think that we should be all proud as Canadians of how everybody's been dealing with this. It is difficult for people. I think it's more difficult for some than others. We're very blessed here, as I said, but I think that I just feel hopeful because there's so many smart people who are working on this. And we've done so many things that we didn't expect to be able to do, like people who are making masks and PPE and who are helping their neighbor and who have reached out to others that they normally might not have reached out to. And I just think the whole community coming together has just been amazing to see. As I said earlier, I'm on the board of our local food bank, and it has been just amazing to see the outpouring of financial gifts and food gifts from this little community to the food bank to help people. And it's just so uplifting to see that and to see how people are changing how they work and changing how they just live their lives. We're so resilient and it's amazing to see. And I feel very hopeful. Some days aren't as great as others, of course, but overall, I really do feel like we will come out of this differently. I kind of don't want to return to normal. I kind of want to come out different, renewed, with a different attitude, with different ways of working, with different awareness of what's really important and what we can each do to help each other. I think it's a real opportunity for us all. But I just want to say one other thing on hope, if I could, Paul.
Sure.
It's something very personal to me. About 20 or 25 years ago, I was struggling a bit with my faith, and your lovely wife, Elizabeth, told me something, and I'm going to get teary. She told me something that has always stuck and has always helped me when I start to feel my hope wane a little bit. And she said, I was doubting my faith, and she gave me a little bowl. It's not this bowl because it got broken in the move, but she gave me a little bowl of mustard seeds and reminded me of the parable of the mustard seed. And so I'm visual, so maybe this will help somebody else. I take a mustard seed, I don't know if you can see it, and I put it on my finger, and I look at it, and I just say to myself, that's all the faith I need. I just need to have the faith of that little seed, and God will take care of the rest. And that really helps me when I'm not feeling very hopeful. So maybe that might help somebody else.
Carol, that is gorgeous. Thank you so much for that. You've got people across the country crying, I think, with that beautiful story of the mustard.
You can thank Liz for that.
Okay, Carol, you say hi to Shane for us, and we hope to see you soon then.
Bye-bye.
Our next guest is Reverend Bill Lord. Bill is a longtime friend of Norval United Church, and we're so pleased that Bill was willing to come on and talk to us a little bit about hope today. So we're happy to welcome Bill into our gathering. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Now, I want I know you fairly well, but the rest of Canada might not know you quite as well. So I want you to talk a bit about yourself and what you do or have done, and just where you are in Canada now.
Yeah, we're living in Guelph now, and Kathy and I are very active in Harcourt Memorial United Church. I started my ministry 57 years ago in Manitoba, preaching 4 times a Sunday and driving 155 miles. And I thought, Paul, maybe you invited me because of the verse of Isaiah 40:31, those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Because when I was traveling from one church to the other, I said to the churches, if I'm ever late, you're to look up Isaiah 40:31 until I get there. So I started pastoral ministry in Manitoba, moved to pastoral ministry in downtown Toronto, went to graduate school in adult education, became the minister of Christian development for Toronto Conference, where you and I met first, I think, and then finished my ministry as the director of continuing education at the Toronto School of Theology. And there I taught a course in adult learning theory. And since moving to Guelph, I in my life, on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, I fell among educators, and so I've continued that by leading for 5 years a group of ministers in study, and since then I've consulted either in person or now on Skype with a number of ministers who are in the front line.
Yeah. Well, our theme this Sunday is hope, and we're asking various people to talk a little bit about hope. So I invite you to talk about how you're finding any hope this day, or where you do find hope. So
yeah, the big change for me in this has been to reframe the word hope from a noun to a verb, and so when I think of hope as a verb, I think about the change in people in their attitudes as they relate to others. I see people doing things they haven't done for years in terms of caring, compassionate acts towards other people. We have people who are risking their lives on the front line for others, often for people they don't know. We see people making donations. Well, here in Guelph is where I know best. People making donations for food for children who were getting meals at school. They're now getting meal cards or cards to shop and get groceries and care for that. And I see hope in all the people who are trying new things, like churches that all of a sudden are broadcasting what they never thought might happen. I see others doing very imaginative kinds of things. And I guess one of the things that this period of quiet waiting has done for me is to give me some time to ask about some of the things I was doing. Why was I doing that? And so the same for Harcourt Church. Why were we doing that? And so it's a call, it's an invitation to do things differently. And I'm going to close with a story. I was watching TV the other night on one of the programs that was talking about about COVID. And they said a grandfather was in the hospital dying, and his family couldn't see him. but they talked to his nurse, and his nurse said, I'm going to hook my cell phone up to the public address system in his room. And the family, one by one, said goodbye to him. That's an innovation that family will never forget. And that's what's happening positively out of COVID-19.
Bill, we thank you for that. You always have such a beautiful spirit, and you've meant a lot to us at Norval United Church through the years. You've preached at the old church a few times, and we look forward to maybe getting you back to the new church here as well. So we thank you very much for sharing with us today. Our third guest is Maureen Mccartney. She is a new friend of Norval United Church who found us through My Daily Minute. That's the e-devotional that we send out on a weekly basis. And so we're happy to welcome Maureen. Hi, Maureen, how are you?
Hi, Paul, I'm fine.
That's wonderful. I'm just getting to know you face-to-face for the first time. We've connected a little bit via email. So tell all of Canada a little bit about yourself, who you are and where you are and what you do, that kind of thing.
Well, I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I serve a community called Oakbank, which is 28 kilometers from my home out east. And I've been there. This will be starting in September. I'll be going into my 8th year. And yeah.
And you're relatively new to ministry. You had a career before ministry, right? What was that?
Yes, I was a nurse.
Well, this Sunday, our theme is hope, and we're asking people about hope. And we're asking people, are you feeling any hope these days? And where do you find hope in this COVID-19 pandemic world?
Well, I think I have to go back to my grandmother, who used to have these funny little sayings. And she had two sayings that I find myself channeling sometimes. One was, where there's life, there's hope. And the other one was, hope springs eternal. Yeah. And I didn't understand these, I think, when I was a kid, but I used to love listening to her say them when she'd say it to the very miserable old lady who lived across the street, who used to come across and say, oh, Mrs. Mac, did you hear about Mrs. Jones, who's nearly dead? She's very sick. And my nana would say, oh, Mrs. Holland, where there's life, there's hope. And I think that is something that sort of stays with me. And I don't use it glibly. And also the other statement about hope springs eternal. I think there's a lot of hope around us. There's two little girls in the congregation who have, in the first couple of weeks, wrote 200 letters to people they didn't know and just sent them out saying they were thinking about them, could they help? And then another family has been sending out letters. And I think there's a lot of hope around. There's hope in, I'm a gardener, so I see hope in the earth, where it produces out of the darkness of the winter earth come the beautiful snowdrops and crocuses. And so I call myself a backslidden Baptist because some of my Baptist friends are still praying for me because I joined the United Church. But I still hold on to some of my, well, actually, I still hold on to some of my childhood faith. And when I was struggling with some of that hope that I didn't want to let go of, a very wise person said to me, don't let go of your beliefs, put them in the compost. And because I became a gardener, I kind of got that metaphor that the compost reworks things. And so there's always hope going on in that. And I just think that there is inherent goodness in people. So it's all tied together. I am conscious of children, especially First Nations children, who find themselves hopeless and take their lives by suicide. And I think it behooves us as Christians to work to effect change and give everyone the hope that we have.
Absolutely. So we thank you very much for being with us all the way from Oakbank, Manitoba. And we pray God's blessing upon your ministry, and we thank you for being with us today.